our story begins with a prince speaking to his officials, who ask him what he will do about Princess Alisha. He tells them that she will be held accountable for her betrayal, as she attempted to kill him. Meanwhile, in the western part of the country, there is a region called Bastia, which supports the city. It is home to the first prince and future king, who has subdued 3 uprisings and conquered multiple nations, earning him the title King of Wars. The scene shifts to Nina's arrival. However, an official informs her that Prince Set is not available today. She becomes very upset, having waited for over 4 hours, but Hakami tells her that venting her anger won't help. Nina then apologizes for losing her temper, realizing that Hakami is the only one who came with her from the royal palace, while the other women are from Galgata City, which she asks them when she will meet the prince, but they ignore her and inform her that her wedding will take place in 6 months. She is free to do as she wishes until then, and is allowed to roam around the castle as she pleases. Alisha then goes out, wandering through the palace until she reaches the outside. She talks to herself, imagining the prince. She wonders if he is muscular and strong enough, imagining him with blonde hair and red eyes. But at that moment, a bird named Nina appears and attacks her, because she is a stranger to the palace. Prince Set calls to the bird, "Nina, come here." Alisha turns and replies, "Yes, what do you want?" as her real name is also Nina. She looks at him thinking, is this Prince Set? He seems to be, with those red eyes. He then looks at her and remarks, "Strange, your eyes are a deep blue, unusually so. I know you are free to roam the castle, but I never expected to find you here. It seems curiosity has gotten the better of the nun Princess of Fortuna." She becomes angry but controls herself, as she wants him to admire her. She bows and says, "It is my honor to meet you, Prince Set. My name is Alisha Fortuna." He asks, "Was Nina your childhood name? You turned around when I called it earlier." She confirms that Nina was indeed her childhood name. He responds, "My bird's name is also Nina, and both of you have blue eyes." He notices a slight redness or a small injury on her forehead and says, "All right, I will hold the welcoming ceremony tomorrow so you can rest a bit. You're free to roam the castle as you wish that night." Alisha steps outside and admires the beautiful blue sky filled with stars. It has been over half a month since she left her homeland, yet she still feels disappointed and misses Azure greatly. But she reassures herself, saying, "I am doing this to make things work for the sake of protecting Azure and the rest of Fortuna." Later, they gather for dinner, where she asks them, "Who are you?" Prince Set replies that they are Clemene and Mia, princesses from 2 vassal states, and that all of them are potential brides selected by the King of Galgata. He advises them to try to get along with one another. She begins to cry and says, "Take us back to our homeland. We don't want a rebellion against Galgata." Set asks her angrily, "How dare you be so insolent at a welcoming ceremony? You're behaving rudely for a princess of Fortuna." She apologizes to Alisha, but Set, visibly irritated, decides to leave, telling them that none of them seem interested in marrying him. Alisha decides to go after him, but one of the girls stops her and tells her that Set had killed Princess Alisha and that he considers them mere tools to control the land. She urges them to escape immediately. Alisha feels sorry for them but leaves, thinking to herself, "My only wish is to become queen and protect Azure's life." Alisha finally reaches Prince Set and tells him she would be happy to become his queen, no matter the cost. They enter the room, and Set tries to impose himself on her, but she resists. He mocks her, saying she is very naive. Then he explains that there was once a princess named Alisha who tolerated his mistreatment for a while, but eventually raised a dagger against him. That allowed him to finally deal with her family, who were on the verge of starting a rebellion. Alisha recalls her conversation with the king, who had told her that Galgata wanted an excuse to invade Fortuna, despite their friendly relationship. She thinks to herself, "I assumed it was the king's plan that the prince would meet his future wife, and if I could get close to him, he might relent. But this man..." At that moment, Set interrupts her thoughts and asks, "Will you die challenging me, or will you die grieving?" Alisha realizes that he has no intention of treating her as a bride. He then tells her to return to her room and cry. Later, we see Alisha alone in her room. When the maid brings her food, she refuses it, saying she'll eat when she's hungry. She breaks down in tears, admitting, "I can't risk my life like this to protect Azure. My vision was shallow and naive, I'm a fool and have no power, and probably there's nothing I can do." When Nina falls asleep, she dreams of Azure and finds herself back in her homeland of Fortuna. Azure asks her what's wrong, and she is surprised, as she knows she's actually in Galgata. She begins to cry and tells him she had a terrible nightmare where she felt powerless. Azure, however, interrupts her, saying he doesn't want to hear any excuses. He reminds her that today she must study her least favorite subject, etiquette. Annoyed by his words, she holds back her irritation because she loves him. She then tells him that she has endured many hardships to this point, and it's only natural to feel despair and frustration. Azure reminds her that, despite everything, she always smiles. She responds by saying that her small joys and her greatest happiness of all are still with her, helping her to remember her purpose. Azure encourages her to go out and find something good to do. Nina awakens from her dream. Finding food on the table, she begins eating, contemplating whether she would prefer to die challenging Set or die grieving. Either way, she decides that she will always keep smiling. With this newfound resolve, she steps out of her room feeling uplifted and interacts cheerfully with the castle servants. The staff is astonished, unable to believe she is well after meeting Prince Set. Nina finally makes her way to Set's room and asks his guards to let her in. One of them informs her that Set is currently resting and cannot be disturbed. She sees him lounging inside and protests, saying his rest is important, but she still insists on speaking with him. When the guard refuses her request, she raises her voice, declaring she didn't challenge him nor cry as he expected. Instead, she tells him that she will prove herself essential to him as a queen. Set hears her and mockingly calls her foolish, saying that nothing in this world is essential. He promises to talk to her once he's finished with his current activity, then orders the guards to escort her out. Nina leaves, shaken by the look in Set's eyes, a look sharp enough to tear her to pieces. She fears his gaze, yet she knows she must continue on, realizing that he wants her to submit to him. As she wanders outside the castle, she accidentally bumps into a girl named Anne. Nina apologizes profusely, saying she didn't see her. When she looks at Anne, she mistakenly calls her Colleen. Anne, confused, asks what she means. Nina explains that she once knew a boy named Colleen who was like family to her, and he was beautiful despite being a boy. Anne, sensing her sincerity, asks if she is the princess, but warns that since Nina has only been here for 3 days, she shouldn't place so much trust in her so soon. Nina replies, feeling like an outsider herself, that she simply wants to make a friend and continues to beg Anne to befriend her. Colleen agrees, saying if that makes you happy. Nina is overjoyed and hugs her, telling her, "You're my first friend, Nina," then speaks with her maid and happily shares that her new friend is willing to teach her everything about her job. She asks Hikami, "What do you think of this crown?" Hikami replies that it's perhaps better to gift something simpler. Nina agrees but points out that Colleen could sell the crown if she ever needed it. Hikami warns Nina not to upset the Prince of Galgata. The scene shifts to Colleen, who is surprised by Nina's gift. She tells her, "I don't have any to give you in return." Nina reassures her, saying, "It's fine. You're teaching me so much about the castle's secrets. I'm happy people here don't just give orders, but actually talk to me." Colleen responds, "I've never heard of a rule against talking to princesses." This makes Nina recall the strange treatment she received the previous day. She wonders if people here dislike foreign princesses. If no one has told them to interact with her, perhaps she can change that. Colleen thanks her gratefully, and Nina notes that Colleen's happiness is a good thing. Later, we see Nina in her room, brimming with excitement. She says, "I'll do my best today. I'll go greet everyone." But what should I do today? We then see Nina on a terrace when she hears shouting. She approaches and finds a guard arguing with Colleen, accusing her of taking something. "Now, did you steal it?" he asks. Colleen tries to explain that she thought the item was beautiful and that it would have been discarded. The guard accuses her, saying, "If it was on the ground, it still belongs to Prince Set, and you'll pay for your crime in blood." Nina intervenes, telling the guard that Colleen is new here and didn't know better, urging him to be more lenient. The guard replies coldly, "Ignorance is no excuse. Everything here, even a feather on the ground, belongs to Prince Set." Prince Set appears at that moment, and Nina confronts him. "What are you doing? Do you consider even the dust on the ground to be yours?" Set looks at her and responds, "Did I say you could speak to me?" Nina declares, "I was sent here for marriage. I'm a citizen of Galgata." Set dismisses her. "Then there would be no issue if I were to slice you up right now." At that moment, Hikami rushes to intervene, but Set strikes her with his sword, wounding her in the stomach. "Did you think I'd lie to you?" he sneers. Nina collapses with Hikami supporting her. Weakly, Nina says, "I'm very tired." "Don't worry. He won't kill me. It's just a wound that will heal quickly." She tries to reason with Set, saying, "You once said that if I intended to become your queen, the first to be allowed to interpret certain matters my way. I can hear you, can't I? Nina falls to the ground and loses consciousness. Set catches her, wondering what's wrong with this princess, and with that, today's episode concludes. Stay tuned for future episodes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all the latest.